Flashback Friday. I hope you guys are having fantastic, wonderful end of your week. Thank God it's Friday. I'm so glad this week is over. I'm exhausted, even though I'm not really looking forward to next week either. And unfortunately for me, it's not like I get a break over the weekend. My craziness started today. So I'm off work today, but my boss is leaving for 9 days to go to the Dominican Republic on vacation with her family, which I'm happy for her. She deserves it. She needs it. Everybody needs a break. Everybody needs to get away. I'm really happy for her. But that leaves me in charge of the store. Now, I'm currently still sharing my assistant manager's position with Sam. However, Sam just put in her 2 weeks notice. So now the full-time assistant manager's position will be mine. My job isn't going to change at all. My job description isn't going to change at all. It just means more hours. And probably more stress. But I'm fingers crossed that it won't be more stress. I'm hoping that with us having just me and my boss as the two that are in charge, I guess, it will make it a little bit more smooth because her and I work together beautifully. We think alike, we act alike, we have the same goals for the store. We get each other. We can tell each other something without even saying it, and it just gets done. And we have that mutual silent communication, which works wonderful. And then we have Sam. And Sam is kind of just like this little bump on a log who doesn't want to be there anymore. She's got her big girl job. She's got a job with her degree. She's just kind of finishing out her last couple of weeks, and she's not giving us what we need. This gives us a lot of confusion. Sam will do one thing, the girls will see it, they'll assume it's okay because she's in the same position we are. Then we come in and we do things the right way. Well, Sam lets us do this, and then we look like the bad guy because we're throwing the hammer down. We have channeled our inner Thor, and we are throwing the hammer down, and we can't work that way. So we're ready for her to go so that the two of us can do this the way that we want to. With all that being said, she's kind of just left me in charge this week. I am in her eyes, under her. I am in her eyes the first in command out of the two managers we have, and then the two sales leads who are not really managers, but they have more authority than just the regular girls. It's a hot damn mess express. I can tell you that much. But it should be okay. I'm not trying to freak myself out too much about it. Because if I do, then it's just going to make it worse. I'm just going in. This is how it's going to be. If my boss didn't feel I couldn't do the job, I wouldn't have been offered the position in the first place. So I'm going in with that attitude, and I'm just tackling it head on. And I have people that I can call should the need arise, so that's always nice. It's just different to me. I've never been in a position like this before. I've never had to have this authority before. Like, I've never had this kind of management authority. But it's what I'm going to school for. It's what I want to do. And so I'm looking at this as experience for the future. I never know what it's going to entail. It could involve me getting my own store somewhere, anywhere, eventually, which would be awesome. I think it'd be a really awesome experience, even though I know my boss's job, and I don't really think I want my boss's job, even though this week I'm doing my boss's job. Oh, God. Oh, Lord. Anyway, whew, that just kind of made my heart race a little bit. But it would give me an experience to know whether or not if I want to do that in the future, if I just want to stay an assistant, or if I want to take the opportunity and have my own store somewhere in the country someday. So who only knows? It's just crazy. This week could prove to be very interesting. So by next Friday, if I'm sucking my thumb and I'm in a straitjacket, you know why. Huh. But anyway, we are not here to talk about crazy work schedules and new promotions and my boss leaving me for a week. We are here for GA Flashback Friday, where I recap a past episode of Ghost Adventures. And this week, we are going back to Salem, Massachusetts, and the Salem Witch Trials and the Lyceum Restaurant. Now, the Salem Witch Trials took place in 1692, obviously in Salem, Massachusetts. Between June and September, 19 men and women were accused and hanged for the charge of witchcraft. It was a major thing back then. There was not a lot of society. I mean, there was society, but it was based off religion, good and evil. And when you heard of witchcraft, it was very believable because God and the devil were all that existed. There wasn't governments and monarchies. There wasn't social groups. There wasn't any of that. It was, you are one party of people, and there is good and there is evil, and that's it. So when, witchcraft came along, this was the work of the devil. You have signed your soul over to him, and now you are evil. They tested for this in a really weird way. They would take the urine of the girl or the guy, whoever they suspected had what, was bewitched, and they would bake it with flour and feed it to a dog. I cannot make this up. They would feed it to the dog. If the dog began to act sick or weird or crazy, then the person that they fed it to, whatever, was bewitched. You know, as I've done my research on this over the years, just because Salem witch trials is something you've heard about since you learned about history. I mean, you learn about it in school, you learn about it, whatever, it comes out on Halloween. It's just one of those things. And to me, it was almost like the first signs of mental illness. Back then, they didn't know about schizophrenia, bipolar, dementia, all these crazy things that would mess with your head. And I think that maybe that had been the first signs of that. You know, the way that they were throwing fits and had a roller coaster of emotions and would be acting crazy and jumping around and screaming. Those are all things that you think about when someone has like a schizophrenic episode or a bipolar episode. And so I think that's what they were dealing with, but the doctors back then didn't know that. They would just see it as this crazy, out of the world, not normal behavior. And so they just assumed, because they were medically fine, based on the medical knowledge that they had, that this is just the work of the devil. And that's sad, because these people may have been suffering from an illness that wasn't known back then. And they were punished for that. And that's horrible, because then they were innocent. Now, they did have the chance, when they stood trial, to say, yeah, you know what? I am a witch. I do believe in witchcraft. I am worshiping the devil. They would be pardoned, they would be forgiven, and they would get help through the church. But these people, they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to stand there and say, no, I am a witch, when they didn't believe maybe in their heart of hearts that they were. And so that would be an immediate death by hanging. They would keep them locked away till trial in these like coffin chambers, chained to the wall. The water from the tide would get so high it would drag in dirt and animals and rats, and they would just have to stand there. And it was just horrible torture. They were treated horribly for something that they shouldn't have ever been punished for in the first place. And it's really, really sad. It's still present today. People get punished all the time. They get killed all the time for believing in something that they stand for. And that's sad. It's just taken on a different face and a different presence. And it's just crazy to me. Like, it boggles my mind that even though it's not witchcraft, it's, religion. It is a social status, equality. If you're gay, if you're part of the LGBT community, you get killed for being that. And that's sad. And it's just taken on a different presence, but it's still present today. Once it started, it was mass hysteria. It was crazy. And so there was just a lot that was bled into the land. And when you bleed something into the land, it puts a permanent stain on that land forever. And Salem will always have that permanent mark of being the town of the Salem, of the witch trials. So the guys did a 2-part lockdown. They did the witch house, which was actually Judge Jonathan Corwin's home during the trials. He was one of the judges that was in charge of convicting all of these people, and the home itself was the home to death. A lot of small children died there shortly after they moved in, and it's one of the oldest standing buildings that had connections to the trials. It's over 300 years old, and it's absolutely creepy AF. While they were there, they had some things happen during walkthrough. Zach lost some audio on his mic. They picked up an unexplained voice. And then they had, during lockdown, a witch and a warlock come in. A warlock is a male witch, for those of you who don't know. A witch and a warlock come in and perform a ritual to open up the gateway, similar to what they did in England with the incubus succubus thing. Whatever. That still creeps me out. But they did a similar ritual just to kind of open the doorway and to be more open to the environment. And while they were there, they then did the spirit box. They got the spirit box out, and they got some really interesting words that came back that all were relevant to the environment. So they asked what the skull's name was, which the warlock, who was named Christian Day, had named Robert years ago for whatever reason. It was a real human skull, and they named it Robert. Why, I don't know. But anyway, when they asked the spirit box what the skull's name was, they said Robert. They asked what the warlock's name was, they said Christian Day. They asked to name a specific person in the room. They came back with which one. Well, obviously. Then they asked how somebody died. The voice said Hang. Then they asked for a name. She said Bridget. And then when they asked for the last name, she said Bishop. Bridget Bishop was the first person to be hung and accused of witchcraft in the witch trials. They got a few other EVPs, but nothing real crazy. But that spirit box session alone is amazing. Like, they got everything in connection. They then had gotten a couple of EMF spikes and a temperature drop, which when correlated together, those can all mean activity. It was really big for the guys to be able to investigate the witch house. They had to go before a town council in Salem to get permission to investigate, because obviously Salem has already got a reputation, and they have to protect the people that live there. And so they don't want, you know, when you hear something like the Travel Channel, they're going to flock. People are going to bombard this town, and they weren't really sure they wanted that to happen, but they did approve for the guys to investigate in Salem, which was crazy because they were the first paranormal team to ever be allowed to investigate the witch house. Now, the Lyceum restaurant was a prominent place because it's actually built on the land that was owned by Bridget Bishop's family and Bridget Bishop, and she owned an apple orchard there at the time of her life. And now the Lyceum restaurant sits there, and they have some activity in the restaurant that they believe maybe Bridget Bishop and her family. And while they were there, they had Max, another paranormal investigator, like a local paranormal investigator, come in, and he got some EVPs, and he got some action on the PX, and everything was correlated. They were asking Mary's accuser, or Bridget's accuser, and it was Mary. They got every question that they had on every device, whether it be a digital recorder, a PX, a spirit box, and everything was connected by what they said. And so there was no doubt in my mind that it wasn't all one big bubble of paranormal activity. I think that Salem overall will always have that cloud and that presence. It doesn't matter. There's too much that's happened in such a short period of, like in such a period of time, that there's no way that you can ever cleanse that land. It's just stained. It's just got that bubble of death all over it. And it's sad because it was innocent death. And that's one of the saddest things ever. These people were killed because others believed that they had something that they may or may not have had. Even if they were a witch, even if they wanted to keep it a secret, they have the right to believe in that. They have the right to be that. There's people who still practice witchcraft, and that is their right. That is their free will. They have the okay to do that. And now it's not so looked upon. You know, people are like, oh, witchcraft, who cares? You know, it's like we have this and this and this. And people don't always agree with it, but they let them live their lives. There's not people hanging people because they're a witch or they're gay or they're this or they're that. It's just we've moved into this type of society where diversity is normal and diversity is accepted most of the time. And it wasn't then. And 19 people paid the price for that. And that's really sad. And it makes for a really sad environment, and it makes for a really dark environment, and Salem will always have that cloud. But it was an amazing episode, and I'm really glad that they got to investigate such a historical place, because it gives even more foundation to the history that we learn about every single day. But that is all I have for GA Flashback Friday. I will be back on Monday for GA Recap Monday, where I will recap the newest episode of Ghost Adventures Aftershocks. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, have a great, magical, amazing weekend. Much love and happiness.